So there's more Comic-Con coverage coming your way later today and actually probably throughout or at least early next week. But I wanted to take a moment to address the other big news coming out of the convention. As I said yesterday in my Batman Superman video talking about that movie that was announced by Warner Brothers, not a lot of huge headlines coming out of Comic-Con, but clearly the big two were from Warner Brothers, DC, and Disney Marvel. So yesterday I addressed my concerns over the Batman Superman film that was announced. And today I want to talk about the big news from Marvel that Avengers has been christened Avengers 2 or just Avengers Age of Ultron. Big surprise to everybody. I think that was the biggest thing about it, because everyone was so gearing up for this space adventure, especially with Guardians of the Galaxy, and that Thanos was teased at the end of the first Avengers, and they have all these Thanos comic books coming out. Thanos is the star of the Infinity big summer event for Marvel, so to have kind of coming out of nowhere was a big surprise. Now I was thinking about it, and I was like, this is such a strange move. Why would Marvel do this? Why go right when they've been promising to go left? And I couldn't quite put my finger on why it was. At first I was just like, oh, Ultron, will he go over with people? Will mainstream audiences be interested in a character they've never heard of? I mean, obviously no one's heard of Thanos, really. But, I guess, you could argue from the studio system that Ultron has kind of like a Terminator feel. For those of you who aren't aware, Ultron is an artificial intelligence that becomes, self-aware, just like Skynet, and wants to take over the world. Actually, when you think about it, it's a lot like Skynet. And of course, everyone loves Skynet. But, so that's what Ultron is basically in a nutshell in movie lingo. And then I was thinking, and then my next thought was, why on earth would Marvel introduce Ultron before they have an Ant-Man movie? And so then I was like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe Hank Pym will be introduced sort of in Avengers 2, and then he'll spin off and do his own movie. They'll do it that way. But then I started to think about it more and more because that just didn't fit right with me. And then I kind of had like a conspiracy theory epiphany. And if I'm right, I don't know. Marvel may have another Mandarin level twist on their hands here. So if you don't like conspiracy theories and you don't like potential spoilers, I'm warning you now. That's where we're going. All right. So my theory is that everybody knows that Marvel had a very hard time getting Robert Downey Jr. to come back for Avengers 2 and 3. But we all and then he did come back after a couple of months of negotiations and a lot of headlines being like, can the Avengers world exist without Robert Downey Jr. And pretty much everybody answered no. So everybody just assumed that when Disney announced that he would be back, that they've just written him a very large check. But it's starting to occur to me that maybe they didn't just write him a large check, but they gave him the storyline that he requested. Because I was like, when I thought of Ultron, I was like, well, this sure is lucky for Robert Downey Jr. because Tony Stark is all about science, and Ultron, instead of going into space, they're taking a science route. And then it occurred to me, well, maybe Robert Downey Jr. requested that. Maybe he's like, you know what? I hear you guys talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. I know you're making a big movie. I see you're sticking Iron Man in the Guardians of the Galaxy comic. But you know what? I don't want to go to space. I want something that focuses on Tony Stark. And wouldn't it be interesting if Marvel decided to have Tony Stark create the Ultron AI? And he's the one who has the character arc that has been given to Hank Pym previously in the comics of this guilt of creating it. And that would be, that sounds like something that I think Robert Downey Jr. would request, and I think it sounds like something that Marvel would approve, because a studio executive might be like, nobody in the mainstream population knows who Hank Pym is, so, Hank Pym isn't a big star of the comics. It's not like, you're taking something away from Bruce Banner or Reed Richards. Why not? And so that to me is just like a potentially fascinating development. And to further confirm it, I thought back to the press conference for Captain America 2, and someone had asked, hey, do you guys have any input in the in the storylines? And Samuel L. Jackson very frankly said, we have no input whatsoever creatively except for Robert Downey Jr. So this is my theory, and I just think that just two things I want to make a point out about this. It's obviously far away. We'll see what's happening. I'm sure that a lot of things are changing because there's just so much was about Thanos. But if they're going in this direction, two elements. The first is that, what is Hank Pym going to have if you take away Ultron from him? Ultron is pretty much what defines the character that, this was his folly. All he has is Ultron and beating up his wife. So all you're leaving him with is wife beating. So I don't even know what the Ant-Man movie is going to be about then, unless it's just going to be like a superhero Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So I think that's crazy. And then the other thing is that, I think Marvel barely survived the Mandarin twist in Iron Man 3, and they would be just crazy to roll the dice again with this kind of a huge change in comic book continuity. Like I said, I can see a Hollywood executive thinking it's no big deal, and I personally, while I would feel bad for Hank Pym, and I would think it would be stupid to take away Ultron from him if you Ultron away from the character if you're going to make an Ant-Man movie, I could conceivably be convinced to throw it over to Tony Stark because, it gives him something interesting. But at the same time, I was okay with the Mandarin twist. And a lot of you have been like, well, Grace, how can you you have a problem with the Mandarin twist and you don't like other elements, or you're such a purist, like for instance for Superman. And that's because I have to tell you, I never really read Iron Man comics. I had no really relationship with the character. All I was familiar with him was in Twisted Toy Fair Theater, when I always thought it was hilarious when he was drunk in every panel. I thought that was really funny. That was my Tony Stark. I never read a Mandarin comic. I don't know anything about the Mandarin. And even what I'd heard, I wasn't particularly impressed with. It would be almost like if someone decided, hey, let's reinvent the Penguin. I would be like, go ahead. I don't think he's doing anything that special anyway. It's fine. So that's why I was okay with what they did with the Mandarin. But I know a lot of people, and I've had people even over the Comic-Con this weekend come up to me, and they were talking about that, and they said, I loved the Mandarin. So to have the character warped like that was just devastating to me. So as I said, I think Marvel, they barely got out of there alive with the Iron Man 3 twist. I still think we don't know. The jury's out if they did survive that. But to do it again and change Ultron and give it to Tony Stark and have a situation where comic book continuity is changed for the demands of a big actor. And I'm a Robert Downey Jr. fan, but you can't just change decades of comic book history because an actor feels he needs a better storyline. You know what? There are a lot of storylines out there. Go think of a new one. So that's my thoughts on Age of Ultron. I think this is a fascinating development. I think it really leaves Guardians of the Galaxy into the wind. And just like I said with Warner Brothers, you have two movie studios here, Disney, Marvel, and Warner Brothers DC, that I feel, they have a really good thing going here with these comic book movies, and they really need to stick to their guns. I think they're getting nervous. I was talking to someone today about independent comics and why so many people are leaving mainstream comics. I did an interview with Think Hero, another YouTube channel here on YouTube, and I was talking about the fact that there's so much pressure because there's so much money at stake. I think the pressure from the movie studio trickles down to the comic book editors, and then that trickles down to the writers, and there's just such abuse. That's why you have mass waves of people quitting the big two, especially DC, because they're just so unhappy with editorial. And I don't think that's coming from editorial. I think that's coming from up above from the movie studio. So I think that everyone sees a lot of money on the table here. I think they're getting really excited, but I think they're also maybe getting a little sloppy, or maybe a combination of nervous. And I think we need some nerves of steel here, because we just need really good quality films. That's at the bottom line. That's the most important. It's not a gimmick. It's not that it was based on a comic book. It's not, all that stuff is just, this is icing on the cake. As I said in my video before San Diego Comic-Con, the foundation is the script. And so once again, let's hope that in both these cases, Batman, Superman, and Avengers 2 Age of Ultron, that they're in good shape. All right, that's my thoughts about the two big stories coming out of Comic-Con. Stay tuned for more Comic-Con coverage. Thank you for everyone who asked me for my thoughts on these movies. And, don't mistake my excitement, my concern for not being excited about them. I want both Marvel and DC movies to do great because I have so much fun reading their comics, and I want to have as much fun watching their movies.